Welcome to the ultimate digital adventure. I am so pumped to have you here for this explainer. Today, we're going to build an amazing Python programming toolkit literally from the ground up. Think of learning to code kind of like learning how to build a house. But instead of wood and nails, our building materials are logic and data. We are absolutely going to transform you from a tech consumer into a tech creator.
Now, I want to be completely transparent with you right out of the gate. Take a look at this quote. The official St. Paul Pacing Guide or Drawing From actually labels this material for high schoolers. We're talking grades 9 through 12. But hey, don't let that intimidate you. For a 7th grader, this is considered advanced placement-dependent material. The secret here is that with the right step-by-step scaffolding, which we're going to provide for you right here, you are absolutely ready to conquer this challenge.
All right, so here is our roadmap for today. We'll be hitting 1. Setting up your toolkit. 2. Data input and output. 3. Logic, decisions, and loops. 4. Functions and data structures. 5. String manipulation and debugging. And finally, 6. Safe habits and projects.
Section 1. Setting up your toolkit.
Every great builder needs a workbench, right? Well, in the digital world, your workbench is your development environment. Before writing a single line of code, you got to prep your workspace. First, you just install Python on your computer. Then, you open up an IDE. That stands for Integrated Development Environment. You might use Python's built-in one called idle, or maybe a more robust tool like PyCharm. Once you're in, you start practicing basic syntax, which is really just the grammar of the programming language. You'll also learn to write comments. These are just little notes you leave for yourself or other humans that the computer totally ignores. This environment right here is the exact spot where all your coding magic is going to happen.
Section 2. Data, input, and output.
Okay, so if your IDE is your workbench, your data represents your raw materials. And to handle data, you absolutely need to know about variables. A variable is, well, basically a labeled storage box. Imagine you have a physical cardboard box. You write score on the outside with a Sharpie, and you drop the number 10 inside. Whenever you need to check the score, or maybe change it, you just look inside that specific box. It's how we keep your important information safe and easy to grab.
The cool thing is, Python automatically handles the different types of stuff you put in those boxes. We call these data types. You've got your strings, which are just text characters, like hello world. You have integers, which are solid whole numbers, like 42. Floats are your decimal numbers, think 3.14. And booleans, super simple, they are just true or false logical values. These 4 types are basically your digital wood, nails, bricks, and mortar. But, you know, an app isn't much fun if it just talks to itself, right? That is exactly where input and output come into play. We use the print command to push information outward to the screen, and we use the input command to collect answers directly from the user. Doing this creates an interactive program that can actually have a real two-way conversation with whoever is using it. Section 3. Logic, decisions, and loops.
So it's time to bring out the power tools, the ones that let your programs do the heavy lifting automatically. But think about this for a second. A computer is not a human brain. It doesn't instinctively know what to do next. So how do programs actually make decisions on their own?
The answer? Conditionals. A conditional lets your code choose different paths based on specific situations. It's literally like a fork in a digital road. You can tell the computer, hey, if the user score is over 100, print you win, else print try again. By using if, elif, and else statements, along with some logic operators, your program instantly becomes smart enough to react differently to different inputs. It's a real game changer.
Right alongside decisions, we've got repetition, which we handle using loops. Look, if you need to search through a list of 1,000 users, you're not going to write 1,000 lines of code. No way. You just write one loop. We have for loops, which we use when we know exactly how many times we want to repeat something. And then we have while loops. These keep repeating an action as long as a certain condition stays true. Quick warning though, always double-check your logic or you might accidentally create the dreaded infinite loop that just completely freezes your program.
Section 4. Functions and data structures. Now, as your projects start getting bigger, building everything from scratch piece by piece becomes totally exhausting. We need some prefabrication tools here, and those are called functions. A function is just a reusable block of code. Think of it like a mini factory you build right inside your program. You feed it raw materials, we call those parameters, it does a very specific, organized job, and then it hands you back a finished product, which is your return value. Custom functions make your code modular, way cleaner, and honestly, so much easier to maintain.
When you start using functions, you naturally create boundaries, and in programming, we call this scope. Variables hidden inside a specific function have a local scope. That means they only exist inside that one mini-factory. On the flip side, variables defined outside have a global scope, meaning they can be seen everywhere in the program. Properly managing your scope is absolutely crucial because it keeps your data organized and prevents messy mix-ups between different parts of your code.
And to manage even more data, we use lists. A list is this super powerful data structure that lets you hold dozens, hundreds, or even thousands of related values all packed into one single variable. You can find specific items using what's called indexing, grab specific chunks of data using slicing, and use special built-in methods to easily sort, add, or remove info. And you get to do all of that without needing 1,000 separate labeled storage boxes.
Section 5. String manipulation and debugging.
All right, this is the polish and inspection phase of our building process. Now, string manipulation might sound super complex, but it really just means modifying text. You'll use these tools to transform raw, messy text into beautifully formatted output for your user. You can automatically capitalize words, handle escape characters, format spacing, and analyze text data to make your final application look incredibly professional. But before any app goes public, you have to inspect it. And that brings us to debugging. I really want you to hear this loud and clear. Your code will break. It just will. Finding and fixing errors is a completely normal, totally expected, and honestly essential part of every programmer's journey. It's just a systematic process. You run test cases, you find the bug, you squash it, and you move forward. Having bugs doesn't mean you're a bad coder at all. It just means you're doing the job right.
Section 6. Safe habits and projects.
Okay, so now that you have this incredibly powerful toolkit, we need to review the professional safety standards required for the real world. Real software development isn't just typing randomly on a keyboard. It follows a specific cycle. Step 1 is planning. You break down the problem using storyboards or pseudocode. Step 2 is actually writing the code, maybe incorporating some external libraries. Step 3 is our old friend, debugging with test cases. And Step 4 is attribution. If you use someone else's code or media, you absolutely must give them credit. The official CSTA K-12 computer science standards make this super clear. As you build your projects, you have got to practice basic cybersecurity. Use strong passwords, protect users' personal data from unauthorized access, and always respect intellectual property rights when you're remixing code. Because a good developer isn't just someone who can write clever loops. A good developer is responsible, ethical, and safe. And just like that, layer by layer, you have constructed an incredible foundation. Even though we started with high school level concepts, you now have the exact scaffolding you need to master variables, logic, functions, lists, and debugging. So I'll leave you with this final thought. You have officially unlocked the ultimate Python toolkit. So what incredible project are you going to build first? That blank screen is waiting for you. Go create something amazing.